Hi, everyone. I am Michael Hingson, the host of Unstoppable Mindset. We would like to welcome you wherever you happen to be in the world. We're glad you're here with us. I have a guest today who has experienced a lot of things relating to finance and other things, and he has, as many people would say, kind of really pulled himself up by his bootstraps, as it were. And we'll talk about that. So I'd like you to meet Christopher Maritz. And Chris, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. We're glad you're here.
Great to be here, Michael. Thank you so much for the invite.
Well, thank you for accepting it and coming on. Well, why don't you start by telling us a little bit of kind of maybe about the early Chris growing up and so on?
Oh, debaucherous little fiend I was. Very, very naughty, very feral. I grew up in a family of five siblings. Two were not in the house at the time, but a very loving mother and father, Gallo Santon in South Africa. We had a great time. We got some good spoils. We learned a couple of hard lessons. Mom was the nurturer, dad was the strict one. So, the good old upbringing, really.
What kind of hard lessons did you learn?
Oh, so funnily enough, the first one and the hardest one was not to pee on a seat.
Ah,
In South Africa, you get a little bit of a smack on the butt if you do something like that. And my dad, funnily enough, very strict Afrikaans man, Nick, he had a stick called Mr. Tired of Talking. And if you do something wrong and he's spoken to you about it a few times, he will get out the stick and say, I'm tired of talking. And you'll catch one on the butt. And I'm telling you now, even if I go to a public restroom or whatever the case is, even if there's pee all over the seat, I will lift that seat with my foot and I will, do my business and put that thing straight down. So
yeah.
it's just basically decorum, basic respect, you know, the general.
Well, well, so he had the stick sort of like an old shillelagh from Ireland.
100%. And it works, it really does.
Oh,
The
yeah.
things that I got away with, I still do today. And the things that were stopped in its tracks, I still stick to today. So I'm completely support and advocate for it.
Well, there are rules, and there are reasons why sometimes there are rules, and we really ought to adhere to them. Sometimes I think we don't do enough to explain to people why there are rules, and so we don't get the understanding that we should. But by the same token, at some point you've got to just learn the hard way that rules are rules.
Oh, yeah. Rationale definitely beats authority. So if you
Yeah,
understand why you're being punished, it definitely helps in the long term.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does. And your parents were pretty good about explaining those kinds of things.
My mom, my dad would come in at the very end, even if I've been explained, if it's been explained to me five or six times, and I was just being a naughty little brat, as some kids are. My
Yeah,
dad would be, the final stage of Mario Brothers, if you could call it like that. But my
and
mom would walk me through my paces and try and explain it as best as possible in the beginning.
and at some point, Dad would come along and say, here comes the
Yeah,
stick.
yeah, I just go, it's no problem. We're tired of talking, and I think he should actually coin that trademark it and start selling them at markets and things like that. It would be hilarious.
It would be. Well, since it started with you, you should do that.
Yeah, probably.
So,
I'll look into it.
so you were a little bit of a snot growing up,
Mhm.
but by the same token, you learned some lessons, obviously, out of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I think I've carried it with me my whole life. Not to really hop on how strict they were, but it definitely did help me, and I can see that in the difference between people in my work life, people in my private life, my social life. You can see the ones that were stopped in their tracks, and the other and the ones that weren't. And I'm kind of very proud about it. It makes me very strict and makes me very task orientated, and I see things through. And that's exactly what I was taught when I was younger. So it's actually helped me professionally and financially, um, because my parents were strict. So, we have a 2.5-year-old little girl, and not as tight of a ship that my parents ran, but she definitely does get the rights and the wrongs explained to her. And, you know, we like it. We appreciate it.
Well, and you're starting out young, and hopefully that will work pretty well. You haven't had to use the stick with her yet.
No, no, no. She is feral though, but we've tried words for a little while. It's She's adorable. The thing about her is she's really intelligent in my opinion. So she knows exactly how to wrap me around her finger, and the same with mom. It's yeah, it's hilarious. It's a very interesting journey, fatherhood. We really, really like it, but it is challenging at times. Yeah.
My wife and I never had children. She was in a wheelchair her whole life, and she just felt for her particular body it would not be a good thing to do. But we always welcomed nieces and nephews into the house, partly because at the end of the day we could throw them out and send them home. But we learned a lot about upbringings and dealing with kids through that too. So I won't say that we're without knowledge.
Were you the cool aunts and uncles?
Not always. Not always. No.
I like that.
Um, yeah, we did our share of making sure that people understood the right things. They they all love to play with my wife's power wheelchair. And when she was in it, she almost knocked over a few tables with some of them playing with controls, and we had to explain that's not a good idea.
Uh, I think
But
every child has a fascination with wheelchairs, to tell you the truth, at some
yeah,
point in their lives, yeah.
well, and similar sorts of things, yeah, and that's okay. As long as they learn and they grew up respecting the chair a lot more too.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, you went to high school or whatever it is over there.
hmm Yeah, so I completed primary school through remedial schools, Forest Town, Delta Park, and then moved to a mainstream school called Blackberry Primary. And from there, I was sent to boarding school like the rest of my siblings. I'm the youngest, and I was sent to St. Andrews in Bloemfontein. I must admit, I didn't really gel too much. I'm not very academic. If you give me a piece of paper and I'll start tracing it and drawing pictures on the table. You kind of got to engage with me to keep me interested. So when I was told that we
Hmm.
learned Zulu in primary school, and then when we went to high school, we had to learn Sotho, I guess my mind just had a block. I wasn't interested in switching over. It's already difficult enough learning a second language in Afrikaans. So I didn't do well academically there. I was moved to Radley College, which is pretty much a school where you could just finish off your education politely.
Hmm.
That's a hefty sum, which hit my parents quite hard, but I was able to complete matric with the 6 subjects required. I had university entrance if I wanted to, but we never really went down that path. University here is
Yeah.
quite expensive, and it's not as common as in America where you could get grants and uh, pay it off, for example. You kind of have to get in there with great results. And
Yeah.
being not academic, you had to pay your way, which wasn't really an option for us at the time.
So you didn't go to university.
No, I went straight to work. So at 17 years old, I had already worked 2 jobs. I was at Chatterbox Nursery School with my sister Jackie. We looked after 13 2-year-olds after matric every day, which is your final year. And then I did some promotions with Dynamic Promotions, things like Pool Bright, which is chlorine, Kodak, which is imagery, and Bang and the Dirt is Gone, which is kind of like Ajax on your side. And
Hmm.
from there, I just became a data capturer. So the good old someone filled in a form on piece of paper. We're moving to the digital age. Write down all their information from the piece of paper into the computer.
Yeah.
Churned out a couple of thousand of those. Did a couple of restaurateur jobs, bartender, at probably 6 or 7 establishments, and then kind of took it seriously and went from there.
So what is panel beating?
So you guys call it a body man.
Ah.
Bump a car, have a ding, go and fix the car. So in that instance, I worked at Thornton's Panel Beaters, Pro Street Auto Design, and Waterworld, where funnily enough, we actually worked on quite a famous guy, Oscar Spitorius. We worked on his boat. He had a bit of an accident on his boat, and we were able to fiberglass and gel coat repair it and send it back to him.
Ah. Okay. So you had a variety of, of different kinds of jobs. Um, Financially, how was it with your parents growing up? Were you able to be fairly comfortable? Did you go through any major crises growing up? You as your family, I should
Mm,
say.
I guess not really a crisis. we definitely saw two different forecasts. There was one where we lived in a very posh, established area in Morningside, in Sandton, which is the rich area of Johannesburg. And that's because my father was a tourist sales jewelry salesman. So the tourism industry was booming in South Africa at one point in time. You'd take an elephant hair, for example, wrap it around a ring, put a little bit of gold in it. The tourists would die for it. But the tourism industry started slowing down, not to his fault or any detriment or anything of his own. It just started slowing down, and that's the career path that he chose. My mother was a legal secretary for an accident claim legal firm. So she had a very constant income, which is on the medium side. And I guess it was fun now. It was terrible going through it, but right now, what I remember is watching a family that wasn't excellent at saving, that spent in conjunction with their income. So if I earned $1,000, I'll just convert it to dollars for ease. I would spend 990. If I got a bonus and or a raise and spent earned $1,200, I would now find myself spending
Mm.
1,190. And that kind of, I never really noticed it until I became an adult. But slowly throughout time, because of the lack of tourism in the country, we moved to areas like Cresta and then eventually to an area like Ferndale, which is a little bit lower and a little bit lower than that. And it wasn't, I would never say that we struggled. I'd never, harp on that or anything. It's that I saw a very glamorous life. And then at about 10, that was removed and we went to middle income. And then at about 16, we were on the lower spectrum.
Mm.
And I got to taste what all three of those look like. I got to taste, the ribeye, then the sirloin, and then the chuck. And I think it gave me a very unique perspective on working, how important it is to work, and to maintain an income and save money.
Yeah. So that's what you learned by experiencing all of those.
I guess so. I haven't really mastered the savings portion. If my wife was sure, she'd be laughing her head off at me. But the earning capacity and definitely keeping myself busy and trying my best to become an entrepreneur and set up a portfolio of investments and properties and things like that, 100% yes. It scared me that there was no stability or protection that my family was able to work from. It was month to month. And I don't want to live like that, nor do I think that that's fair on me to create as an environment for my daughter. So she's going to be established, and it's going to be accessible to her based on her decorum and education and demeanor. So if she deserves all of these amazing things and she's worked hard for them, it will be a very nice road for her.
Mm.
And I feel like it's our parents' duty, or our duty as parents, to set up that option for them, not necessarily give it to them and spoil them, but to set up the option so that if they do follow the correct path, they do get spoiled and rewarded for it.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's merit to that. It isn't just a matter of giving. It does have to be earned, or they have to demonstrate that they're going to be able to do something with it, I would think.
I agree with you. Couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
Now, does your wife work?
She does. She is I would say, a CSM or CSR for a company in South Africa. They sell a SaaS solution for human resources.
Ah, okay.
And she has aspirations to open up a nail tech salon when we move down to a nicer area of South Africa in Cape Town, hopefully in the next few months' time. And then she's also a full-time superhero parent. So she does the morning runs, the night runs, she does the night routine, she baths, feeds, and I am the cool parent that pops up on the weekend and tickles her, tickles, Liana, our daughter. So yeah, she's an absolute hero in our house and an absolute asset. I have said to her multiple times that she doesn't need to work, that if she could just take care of the traditional structure of our family, that I'll take care of everything else. But she's so driven and passionate about being a contributor that she actually found work about 3 or 4 months ago after taking a small hiatus based on what I suggest.
She must be very patient to be able to be a customer service person and deal with all the people who call in.
Yeah, she's not from a background of money either. So we both immediately recognized the need to absorb it It's not personal.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you. You are not the company. If somebody shouts, there's a lot of different variables in a multivariate analysis that they might be going through that you do not understand or have unpacked yet. So, in order for us to kind of be human fire extinguishers and be emotionally detached from being shouted at or how a client feels, you have to put yourself in their shoes. Myself and
Yeah.
Zena have been there multiple times, so it's quite easy for us.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. And you've got to go from somewhere. And it's all a matter of perspective. And as long as you keep it in perspective and continue to grow and learn as you grow, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I think Michael, you'd actually love this. It's from a movie called A Knight's Tale with William Thatcher. Um, the late Hugh. Oh, I'm going to kick myself in the foot that I don't remember his name. But he made a famous line in that movie saying, "Beggars can't be choosers." So
Yeah.
until I own 70 different mansions and 50, 60-foot yachts, we will humble down and accept a little bit of crap here and there from a client.
Well, and hopefully, even if you win and earn 70 mansions and 60 yachts, you won't lose all that humility either.
Totally true. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, we would
But
have already absorbed the life skills, I guess, um, needed in order for us to maintain that wealth and still have a calm demeanor.
right. When did you realize that you were going to do whatever you needed to do legally, of course, to make sure your family never had to deal with any kind of financial problems again? Was
I
there a,
believe that it started at when I was panel beating. It wasn't a very comfortable life. You have to do fiberglass repair, which sticks into your skin quite
yeah.
badly. And that's not a very comfortable, you have to have a hot bath with baby oil just to try and get that stuff out so you can have a sleep. If you hug somebody, they get affected by it. It sounds really extreme. I'm making a big deal out of it, but it's really not comfortable. So the second that started happening, and I was sanding boats from like 8 to 5, just sanding and sanding and watching my own fingerprints disappear and the water getting a bit red from a couple of blisters on your fingers, do you really crave that desk job? Now, I think this is again a superpower and just an aspect that helped me realize that it's an absolute privilege to sit at a desk and work hard. And then once I sat at the desk and worked hard, I reached the tippity top of most of the echelons. I was in sales. I brought in massive wholesale consumer commercial agreements. I was in technology. I wrote multiple legislation around service level agreements, maintenance agreements, hosting agreements. I sold a ton to massive conglomerates. And then I realized, that in my opinion, what I was earning at that time, if you ask my boss at the time, or my bosses at the time, they would say that I'm earning great. But in my opinion, it wasn't enough for me to protect future proof my family's capabilities, inheritance of what we're going to give our daughter. So that's where I really started trying to push as hard as I possibly can, far more than most. When most people log off and go watch a TV show and eat some food, I'm sitting here. I'm eating in front of my desk. I scoff it down in 5 minutes and I get back to work. I work on
Hmm.
Saturday nights and I work on Sunday nights because, we really want to try and get somewhere. You want to kind of break that chain. And I firmly believe, even though it sounds quite cheesy, that rich parents create poor kids and poor parents create rich kids. Not as black and white as I'm putting it out there to be, but when you come from a background that isn't, unbelievably spoiled, you start really appreciating money. And when
Hmm.
you have to earn it, you complain less about having to put in some elbow grease. I feel like my circumstances were perfect to that.
Hmm. How do you strike a balance between putting in all the time at working and dealing with your family, your wife and your daughter?
I will let you know when I figure that out.
That's fair.
Right now, it's quite funny. Myself and my wife met about 10 years ago. We went on our first date. We had Mediterranean steaks and shared a rum and raspberry canister. And we agreed, or I kind of laid out all the cards on the table that I would like to disappear from being this cute partner and taking you out for continuous dates and walking on the beach with you for about 10 to 15 years. let me set up an empire so that we can retire early and spend the rest of our lives together and do all the things that we've missed over these next 10 to 15 years potentially. And she made that agreement with me.
Mm.
So I do work far more than I'm supposed to. And I'm totally okay with that because there is an end point. I'm not going to be doing this until I'm 60 years old. Hopefully, in the next 10 years, I'll be able to completely wind down, manage the assets, and live off the fruits that we've grown. But for now, there is no balance whatsoever. There is
Yeah.
copious amounts of magnesium and energy tablets and stimulants and mental focus stimulants and things like that from the pharmacy.
At the same time, though, you do have to spend some time with your daughter. She's got to get to know you.
100%. So in the nights it's quite difficult. I normally get about 2 hours an afternoon to night with her during the weekdays, but on Saturday day and Sunday day until she completely goes to sleep, just because she completely needs to, every waking second is hers.
Mm.
From the 22nd when we wind down this year to the first, every second will be spent with her. So we do get enough time in, but definitely working American hours and being in South Africa is tricky as far
Yeah.
as me spending a lot of time with her. But bear in mind, a lot of the things that I would need to go and do after work when she gets home have already been done. So the second that she gets here, there's quality time spent. Not you sit in the back seat while I drive and run errands and all that time spent.
Yeah. Well, so you're getting some movement toward balance, but you also have a goal, and you and your wife agree to it. And I think that's part of the whole thing, that you have a goal and you're working toward achieving it. And as long as you two communicate with each other, it'll all work.
I agree with you. Communication is extremely important, and
Yeah.
also having a partner that's your teammate. I might not be the most romantic person in the world, but if you come to me and you discuss a plan or want a dissection of it and really want to go through it and everything like that, then I'll sit there as your partner and really help you manifest something that's super powerful. And maybe to just bring it around to you, if I can try and learn from you, Michael, did you have something similar with your wife? And did you guys plan similar to how I'm kind of planning? I'd love to learn from you as well.
Um, we did always communicate, and we had challenges. I know when in 1995, late 1995, um, we needed to move out of where we were in Southern California because the company that I worked for needed to have an office on the East Coast. And originally it was going to be in the Washington, D.C. area selling to the government, which is one of the things that I had done. But then one day early in 1996, the president came in and he said, I had an epiphany. I don't want you in D.C. I want you in New York, because we do need to have a presence in New York for Wall Street firms. Wall Street firms like manufacturers to have an actual presence. That my wife didn't want to do. And we had to have some really serious communications about it. Um, but eventually we agreed, and we moved to New Jersey, and I went into New York every day. And um, she also made friends. I think she was more worried about how she was going to be able to make friends and so on in the
Hmm.
in the New Jersey, New York area as opposed to DC. But there weren't that many people we knew in the DC area anyway. But it all worked out. But yeah, communications is absolutely key. And I remember still that we had to have some pretty serious discussions about it. And at the same time, we made a commitment to be together, and so divorce wasn't a question. But we did have to have go through some challenging times. So I think communications absolutely is the issue, and sometimes there's a need to do some compromising on all sides, because it isn't one way or the highway. Um, Everyone has their needs and so on, and we do have to respect that.
Oh, that's just ain't that the truth, eh?
Yeah.
Compromise, go as far as to say is the spice of life. To try and meet in the middle, it is one of the most tiring things proven to listen to somebody else's opinion and try and agree with it, because it is not how your mind thinks. It is not how you would formulate that sentence. It is not what you would have thought. And you have to sit there and hope. what you agree, how you think, what you would have said, how you would have structured, and how you would have executed that plan. You have to put that aside and
Hmm.
generate this brand new plan that kind of fits somebody else's model. And it's unbelievably difficult to do that. It hits your pride. But yeah, I'm glad you guys found a middle route through it.
But you can learn to do that. And it is part of what marriage is all about, which is the bigger issue. When you get married, you make commitments to support and be with each other. And that does mean that it is supportive all the way around. So that is a crucial thing to be able to do. And we worked through it, and it all worked out pretty well. We also had some times where we had some financial challenges, and again worked through it. We actually thought about bankruptcy once, and we actually visited a bankruptcy lawyer who said, "You guys are perfect for bankruptcy. It's not that you've done anything wrong; it's all about circumstances." But then we decided not to declare bankruptcy, and we lived by faith, and we came through it, which also, I think, helped build a lot of strength in our relationship and in each of us.
So I think you did the right thing. Definitely, we have a thing in South Africa here called debt relief. They
Hmm.
combine all of your assets and all of your, things that you owe and try and give you some type of reduced rate. But again, you can always overcome those scenarios. And,
Yeah.
I resonate with what you guys went through.
Hmm.
You can get through the majority of these things, and it sounds cheesy again, but you really can through faith. My
Yeah.
wife brought me straight back to it. I was very devout in my youth. I was Roman Catholic, Scripture Union camp leader, read the Bibles, taught it a little bit, and then just through school and being naughty and going through multiple different schooling systems and being a part of certain friendship groups, you kind of lose track. And one day she just said, "Listen, do you want to pray with me tonight?" And I went, "Yeah, it can't hurt, because it can't."
Hmm.
And the second we started doing that, these Jezebel spirits in our lives, these toxic friendships, they just disappeared. We started fighting with them. It just became uncomfortable. There was this dark cloud over certain relationships and situations. And I don't know, almost within a millisecond of us saying amen of that prayer, things just started changing.
Hmm.
And where we are right now is light years ahead of where we were a couple of years ago.
Isn't that great?
It's unimaginable. I couldn't suggest it to more people out there. Regardless of, you know, which deity or whatever your choices are or anything like that, if you look at it down to its core, self-talk, regardless of the name that you put in front of it, it always helps you if you're thankful for things and if you're genuine and if you follow the basic code that's been traced down to almost every single religion on this planet, is just be a decent human being. You don't have to be
Yeah.
amazing. You don't have to be perfect. Just be a decent human being to your immediate circle and surroundings. And I
Yeah.
promise you, it will be repaid tenfold every single time.
Yeah. Every single time. I
Yeah.
remember I mentioned we had some times where we had some financial issues. One of the things that we did um, early on, well, not early on, but at one point, I got a job at a company about 50 miles from where we lived. And we eventually moved there. But in the short term, my wife drove me down every day, and then I took a bus home. But we read a lot of books as we traveled down in the morning. And one of our favorite authors that we both like to read was a woman named Catherine Marshall. I don't know whether you're familiar with her, but
I'm
her
not.
husband, Peter Marshall, was a chaplain of the U.S. Senate in the late 1940s. And she wrote a number of
Okay.
books. And one of the things she wrote about in one of her books was about a guy named Mueller who was very poor, had all sorts of financial problems, and also was going to go off and declare bankruptcy and get absolved of all of the debts. And he decided, I have to face up to this. I can't go off and do that. I'm going to work through it. And his faith helped him do exactly that. And that was one of the reasons that we didn't declare bankruptcy. And it was successful. We did okay with it. But again, I think the biggest issue is it's all about communications. And we we came to settle on a plan and we followed it. And that is always so important to do. Now we're back again.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem.
I don't know what's going on with the internet, but anyway, we functioned and we got through it. So uh, can't can't complain too much about that anyway. But tell me, I guess maybe a little bit more about you. Um, what was the hardest job you ever had, and what did you learn from it, and how did it help you move forward?
Potentially the engineering role. I was a service ops manager for an OEM software engineering company called Adroit. I loved my direct head. I absolutely loved everything about the company. But yeah, are you f familiar with working with engineers?
A little bit,
Down to the core. If you say go left, they go right,
yeah.
just to push the button. They're hyper intelligent, they're very disorganized, and when somebody's brought in to fine stream processes and to help squeeze more out of every hour and to track the deliverables and executables so we can further fine tune an overall business strategy and become more profitable, you are the arch nemesis of all existence. That's where I found myself. So I was brought in to try and streamline a couple of processes and create some recurring deliverables. And it was very, very difficult to manage personalities. I was young. I My average engineer's age was probably 10 or 15 years older than me. So, you know, famous South African term, you're wet behind the ears. You're
Mm-hmm.
still very new. You're not good at what you do. And I battled with a lot of different personalities. Eventually found that you can only change if you want to. And that was a perfect segue into starting to join the digital marketing realm and the American markets. One cool thing about South Africa, and probably one out of the top three, is our currency is quite low. So when you're able to partner with digital firms and American companies and things like that, you can actually do quite well and set yourself up. So it's I went from very difficult to that forcing me to move into something that I truly love and enjoy right now.
Well, so when you were working with the engineers who thought they knew it all, and maybe they did, who knows? What did you eventually do? Were you able to gain their respect, or did you develop a way that you finally were able to get a détente and work together?
Yes, with some, yes. Based on my work ethic, they went, all right, there's method to madness. I see what he's trying to do. And a couple of heart to hearts that you learn from client facing roles. If you like soccer or football, what do you know? The next week, I love watching soccer and football, and I've just watched the new game. And we get to talk a little bit about that and humanize the situation rather than boss to colleague or boss to worker.
Yeah.
But there are some that if you walk outside and the sun's on the left, they scream at the sun for being on the left and not on the right. And if a car drove past, the car drove past too fast. Cars insulted them. And if there's a cricket flying through the sky, that cricket was a personal attack and visceral, you know, monstrosity to the engineer. So there were two or three people that I just couldn't get past.
Yeah.
But the majority of them saw that I was a young, hardworking man who was trying to create a future for their family, and they should not take my role personally. So I still have good relationships with a lot of them. My boss, Hugo Pina, I hope he watches this at some point. He was a phenomenal man. I learned so much from him and a gentleman called Franz Rossley at Core Catering Supplies. They gave me a lot of personable skills that I've carried through my whole career.
And that's always such a neat thing when you can recognize you learn things from people and move forward. I've always maintained that the best bosses are not really bossy or trying to boss people around. They really work at trying to be true leaders, which means for me, it's how can I add value to what you do? My job isn't to boss you around as your superior. My job is to use the skills that I have to help you and help you be able to move forward in what you do.
Couldn't agree more. The most underrated and underappreciated skill and underutilized thing on this planet. listening without interrupting, not
Yeah.
listening to respond. And when somebody says something to you and you're given the opportunity to feel heard and not rushed, that person instantly resonates towards you. You instantly become a mentor instead of a boss.
Yeah.
And there's only a few people on the planet that have been able to get that right. My current department head as well, right now, he he's just aced it. And it feels like working with one of your friends where there is a line that you can cross and go,
Yeah.
hey, you got to pick up your socks, man. But I'll help you. I'll help you pick up your socks. This is where you went wrong. Let me help you steer this back onto course. Rather than you picked up your socks, you better wake up right now, or this is your first warning type of thing. Too
Yeah.
many of those out there. Yeah,
Way too many. I've always told the people who I hire, my job isn't to be your boss and boss you around. You convince me that you should be able to do the job. Now, some people let me down, but my job isn't to boss you around. My job is to use my skills and to work with you to figure out how we use my skills to add to your skills to make you more successful. And the people who get that really, and who did get it, really were very much more successful than the people who didn't. They didn't recognize
100%.
that there were things that they needed to do that they weren't doing. So I loved it when we could add value. That's always been so much fun.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. Yeah,
And it really does work.
that's true. It's the people that have remained open-minded enough to listen without interrupting and actually hear what you're saying. Those people have taken the ship and gone to the moon. Honestly, um, the rest are still trying to figure out what in their past inherently created the situation that they're currently in and how to devise a strategy around telling everybody about that is why they are where they are.
Yeah.
Whereas the others have just gone, no, no ways. No, I'm just going to go straight to the moon with everything I've learned from these amazing mentors from my past.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and people will be people. Well, how did you get into really get into sales and start breaking sales records? And what did you learn from breaking records?
Yeah, it's tough out there. That was straight after my panel beating job. I went to Core Catering Suppliers, an amazing company. I got an opportunity from a lady called Chantal. She said, "Look, we're looking for sales reps. You can talk the head of a horse. Why don't you just come in and have a conversation?" So I lent some fancy clothes from a friend of mine, went into the meeting. You know, it's so funny to look at the interview now. Can you sit on a chair? Oh yeah, I've been sitting on the chair my whole life. I wrote the book on how to sit on chairs. They've called me the good old chair expert, and you just oversell yourself hilariously. And the gentleman France there at that time, he gave me an opportunity. I wasn't doing very well at all until panic started kicking in. I didn't make any sales, and it was about 2 months in, so I was an overhead that they couldn't really afford. And he actually came and told me I was about to let you go until you got that one sale, which was a lady, I can't remember her name. I think it was Patience in Glorview, and she worked at MultiChoice. She did the catering there, and I have been pitching to her and sending her newsletters and emails and phoning her, and she was politely just going, just I'm telling you, if I actually do need something, I promise you I'll pass your shop. And I went, yes, I know, but this, and she said, please, just leave it there. And eventually she popped into the shop and she bought 36 continental 32 centimeter plates, glittrified china, 3 times glittrified china, beautiful tableware, crockery. And I made a massive sale, and he patted me on the back and he said, I knew you could do it, man. You just got to calm down. And I went, yep, I know. And the second that I got that commission check, that's when things got real. I went, oh, okay, so this is how it works. If I work extremely hard, land deals, I get more money. And I went out and I started finding the biggest whales that were almost completely impossible to catch on my little dinghy. And I went for the Tohosan Hotel agreement, the vendors list agreement that a company, a massive conglomerate in South Africa called Bidvest owned. The agreement was, cost plus just over about 16% roughly. And I went to their head office, the Tohosan Hotel chain, and I saw the procurement head there. I just watched. And the next day I watched. And the next day I went back in for the third time and I found the patent. So I went to the coffee shop that he normally has a quick coffee at. And I said, are you Neil Ferré? And he said, absolutely. And I said, Neil, I'm a young, hungry man and I'm going to take the business that you're currently getting from other suppliers, and it's going to come to me. And he laughed his head off and he said, "You have any idea who I am and the magnitude at which my buying power sits with?" And I said, "Yep, that's why I'm sitting here. I prioritize importance and I need to get this contract." And about 2 months later, we got the entire list agreement. They exclusively could only buy through us, 192 hotels plus two casinos. And we created a consumer agreement around it. I received a bonus because of it. And over time, as with everybody, sometimes you outgrow roles and positions and have ideas and aspirations that don't necessarily fit the boundaries at which you're sitting in. So I moved to Questec Advanced Technologies, started working on flight simulation, gastronomy scopes, control rooms, audiovisual boardrooms, and started selling there. I must admit my education lacked a little bit at that point. I really didn't know the audiovisual topology and the wiring and things like that. So I was sent by an amazing boss there called George van Giels and Darren Cox to go and sit atop of a skyscraper in Johannesburg CBD and look after a video wall at that time was the largest video wall in the world. 2,880 46-inch LED screens put together in sequence in a daisy chain, placed in a big square around the top of the skyscraper. And I maintained stock levels. And if a LED broke, I went and replaced it with a harness attached to my body. And that was a lot of fun. That was 6 or 7 years. And then from there, I moved to ProSirius, started as a business development manager. I sold a lot of different packages to a lot of massive companies and became an on-site facilitator. This is where, again, I harnessed the client's skills and becoming that human fire extinguisher and absorbing the irritation and sometimes arrogance that some of the clients had, and sold everything that I could, won as many contracts as I possibly could, and then moved into engineering.
Well, and you obviously were learning how to think strategically, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah, it's almost an understatement, really. You know,
Yeah.
you have to sit there and try and save money month to month while trying to put together a portfolio or assets, while trying to buy nicer clothes so you can create that perception of you being successful,
Yeah.
so you can get a better role, while learning how to sell, while educating yourself, while you have targets, because obviously in sales you have a quota to make. So it was very tiring, and to still maintain that social life because sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. So trying to brownfield or farm the connections that I had in my immediate friendship circles to see if there was anything that I could potentially do there or move into. Those things going on at the same time in a young man's head, it's very, very tiring, very cumbersome.
Yeah. But you have to do it if you want to find ways to continue to grow.
Well, yeah, Michael, to not everybody. I mean, you could stay with mediocrity or you could push.
Well,
And
and
I chose to push. Yeah.
and there are a lot of people who are in what they consider stable jobs, but they don't generate long-term wealth. And you obviously did something that made you move beyond that and eventually led you to go from engineering to digital marketing. What kind of conversation did you have with yourself about that?
August 2022, I was presented with a pregnancy test.
Ah,
And I, it's almost a cheat code, to tell you the truth, Michael. The second that I realized that somebody else is going to definitively, until the end of my life, count on me, I had, you know, the good old normal role, and everything was totally fine. And literally within 2 months of getting that pregnancy test, I switched roles, started working for Americans, an amazing company. Was carded by a phenomenal gentleman, Brad Ferris, Clinigro. He's unbelievable. He gave me a beautiful opportunity, and I ran with it. And that's where it kind of really started. I wish I had more introspective advice to give anybody out there that this is what I did and this is why I wanted to work hard. But truly, the second that I found out my wife's pregnant, I started going ballistic. I put down every bad habit I had. I formatted my gaming computer. I used it as a work computer from then on. I stopped watching TV shows. I started re-educating myself. I found any type of night owl work that I possibly could. I started formulating domains and businesses with a friend who created websites, and it hasn't stopped till this day.
So, the first real digital marketing company you worked for was that Kick Charge Creative?
It was a company called Plumbing and HVAC SEO. There's an
Okay.
amazing team of individuals there that are highly skilled in their own rights. I learned a ton from them. Went through a ton of CRM certifications and Google certifications. Really upskilled myself.
Mm.
Really took a look at the landscape of the American home service industry. But yes, that was the first one that I went to. Yeah. Currently, I'm at an amazing company called KickCharge. They gave me a beautiful
So you're a Kick
opportunity.
Charge
KickCharge
now.
is yeah, they're one of the biggest brand and digital agencies in America. They're unbelievable at what they do. Our team are all industry leaders. They are continuously re-educating what we do for clients, and the smiles that they have on their faces is just something to behold. It's truly amazing.
What do they do? Why are they so successful at what they do?
We take a holistic approach to the client. Uh, most companies will kind of start at the basis. What do you need? Okay. And what's your name? Okay, we're going to build a website for you and run some services. What we do is we take a full on disagulation of your entire industry, perception, how you started, where you guys have come from. And then we formulate an entire game plan from branding, stationery, vehicle wraps, flyers, lawn spikes, whatever you possibly can think of to make it completely cohesive with your brand and what you want to be known for. And then we take that and build an entire website around it and structure services around that as well. And I think the main difference maker is we continuously re-educate our clients and ourselves. We stay on top of new trends. We try and stay one step ahead by continuously re-strategizing and going through continuous, rigorous audits of all data possible, and then just keeping our ear to the ground of what's currently trending. And we put that all into one amazing service and hand it over to primarily the home service industry, but it has been expanding. They're just very lucky to be a part of the team. They're phenomenal.
What did and does working there teach you about excellence, culture, and and impact and so on? What have you learned from all of that?
That accountability is either your enemy or your ally. You could sit there and be demotivated that you have a ton of things to do, or you could be excited and realize that it's such a privilege to be tired from the things that you wish you could do. 10, 15 years ago, when I was panel beating, I wish I could be this tired, having a beautiful desk job with a great salary, with amazing colleagues. And, you know, when I walk into most of those rooms, I'm one of the, least educated, least experienced people in the room. I found out the hard way that your circle is everything. Not something, it's absolutely everything. You are who you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
And I get very, very scared when I am the smartest person in the room or the most driven person in the room. It terrifies me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I walk into a room and I couldn't even fathom the ideas that these people are coming up with, I know I'm in the right place. So I am absolutely in love with where I am. I completely advocate for them, and I can't wait to see where this goes.
One of my most favorite books that I've ever read is The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And he talks a lot in that book about teamwork and accountability, and everything goes back to accountability. And what unfortunately so many people don't realize is accountability is not something that you should or need to take personally. It's all about you make agreements, you make commitments, and other people are doing their best to help you to keep your part of the commitment by holding you accountable. And that's not a bad thing.
I mean, look at it this way. Let's break it down to its raw structure, Michael. If you did not hold yourself accountable to eat food and drink water today, in 2 or 3 days, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
There are things that are necessary to do. Structuring your day, being diligent, getting through them, being respectful, listening, not to respond, but to understand, completing your tasks so that you're not a bottleneck to other people who are also trying to earn for their family and have things that they need to get off their plates. You need to hold yourself accountable in order to be a teammate to other people who you really treasure and value. So it's, in my opinion, it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Accountability is everything.
And through accountability and through everything that we've talked about, it's also about you being absolutely and totally willing to learn and grow. Because if you stop doing that, you're never going to be successful.
Oh yeah, I am 40 pounds heavier today from eating some humble pie. I've had to do it a few times in my life, and there is nothing wrong with learning. There's nothing wrong with the smack on the knuckles. It all helps towards that greater goal, just becoming a better you. As
Don't take
cheesy
it
as that
personally.
sounds.
Don't take
Yeah,
it
don't take it
personally.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't. Yeah.
How does somebody go from being just an average worker to an elite performer? What is it that it takes to do that?
I'm gonna generally address what it takes to level up.
Yeah.
As a performer in your personal life and your work life, set your boundaries in your circles and choose your circle carefully. Um, Not everybody in your circle is there to advocate for you and cheer for you. And unfortunately, you learn that the hard way. You lose a lot of years. Um, as far as being a top performer, just recognizing that you have 16 hours a day of conscious time on this planet. 3 hours of rest is a lot, a lot.
Hmm.
And you could put a lot more time into certain things. So if you want to tick off a task and call it a day, more power to you. Completely respect that. That's a path that most people walk. But if you really want to get somewhere, you need to skip a few TV shows at night. You need to clock in an hour earlier and leave an hour later. Not every single day, but often. Your hard work and your diligence and decorum in the workplace and the effort that you put into yourself directly translates to your financial bracket. I've learned that over the last few years, and it couldn't be more true. You get good at what you do all the time. If you work, you become unbelievably good at working. You watch TV, you get really, really adjusted to watching TV. If you listen to, a lot of music, you'll have a great genre and a detailed base of which bands are popping, which songs are great. You'd be able to speak to it at great lengths at barbecues and braais. But you could put that time towards work. Now, everything that you do and how much time you spend to it equates to becoming a master of that thing. So if you find yourself putting in more work, trying to educate yourself and just spending more time trying to further your career, you will inherently, for a fact, become better at it and a
Hmm.
far better performer than most people around you.
What I think so many people don't understand is so much of life is all about the choices that we make. And
Mm,
it is all about making a choice and recognizing that we make a choice and owning up to that choice. And if it turns out not to be the right decision, learn and go back and choose something different.
couldn't agree more. I've had to restart a few times. That humble pie that I was talking about. I've taken a couple of back steps financially, mentally. Just just stay the course. Just trust that you're completely capable of doing it. Have faith. Get closer to your faith. Choose your circle wisely and spend some extra hours at work. And I'm going to be bold enough to promise you that you cannot go wrong.
Hmm. So, given everything you do, what strategies do you use to keep yourself motivated and moving forward?
I don't want to be where I was in 2007, 2008, 2009,
And you remember
where
that.
yeah, you remember that every single day. People go, "Oh, my back's sore." I go, "I'm privileged to sit on this chair." Or, can't wait for the weekend. I go, "You treat a Sunday like a weekday." Um, it's a privilege to be so busy that you have to sit there and put a couple of extra hours in. So remembering that I have somebody that counts on me and a wife who I've said take a back seat, enjoy your time with her, build up that bond. I will catch up with it in a few years' time. Um, all of these people are counting on me. And
Hmm.
especially this is where kind of the poor family creates the rich guy. I don't have an inheritance coming up. At 50, if I haven't set something up, I'm going to have a really dismal time. No matter what happens, no matter who you are, time is undefeated. Eventually, you'll become a little bit too old to work or be effective in that current, in environment or generation. And I've watched it happen to my parents. My mom is 70 plus. She's a lovely lady. Give her an iPhone. She, you know, it's like it's like a caveman trying to build a nuclear reactor. She just won't be able to operate it on a level that I would be able to. So eventually you're going to hit your expiration date as far as work
Hmm.
goes and your income goes. And whatever you set up, that legacy that you put in and that elbow grease that you invested in and trudged through while your friends were partying and while they were watching TV and you were sitting up here every single day and night, um, that drives me because I like the finer things in life and I'm going to drive my daughter to school and I'm going to go stand on the beach and I'm going to go relax. I'm going to have a beautiful coffee or Americano on the beach at a beautiful restaurant and I'm going to tip heavily. And I'm going to go and have a beautiful gym day and I'm going to work on a skin routine and go to gym and really enjoy myself. And I'm going to go fetch her again. And that's because I've retired early because I put the elbow grease in now. That manifestation and that life that I want so badly for me and my family, that's what drives me. That's what keeps me to maintain the course.
You talk about transmuting effort into wealth, and you call that a video game. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I used to play games like CS:GO, Ark, Dota 2, StarCraft, Warcraft. Yeah, the objective in these games is to create workers or, you know, to tell you the truth, like murder things and get their gold. And now you've got the gold, and then you can buy a cool item, and that item makes you stronger. And then you can go and do more things, or you have to build up a base, and then you have to go and mine these things to build another building so you can research a new cool thing. Working is exactly the exact same thing. There is no difference whatsoever. Um, I'm going to put in time and farm wealth to do better and greater and bigger things. And once I'm there, I'm going to level up my metaphorical town hall so I have access to newer technologies and newer luxuries and things that I didn't have access to before. And once I get to that point, that hunger is going to continuously take over and over and over in a very healthy way. And it's going to go, all right, well, now I have this beautiful city that I've built, but it requires new minerals and new resources. The exact same explanation can be given to the workforce. I want to work harder so I can have this asset. That asset is going to earn passively, subliminally, subconsciously in the background. And that's going to earn, and I'm going to fork that into a different asset. And eventually down the line, my city or my army is going to become autonomous from me having to put in elbow grease. And I'm going to be able to sit back as the commander and get a nice big belly and drink some beautiful beer and eat some amazing ribeyes and just watch it all perform. It's the exact same thing as a video game. I wish more people realized that.
Mm. You talk about building an empire, which is exactly what you're describing is building an empire, and something though that, unlike a lot of empires, will last.
Exactly. I'm completely infatuated with something that will last for my family. We had a dear friend, James Solden, who passed in 2023. His nickname when we were playing computer games was Semaj. I used to nickname him Magi because there was in Dota or Warcraft there was an item called Robe of the Magi. So
Mm.
what we've done is create a trust called the Magi Foundation that owns an asset company that we've set up, which owns a couple of delineated companies that we are currently bringing income into, and then forming a board where these people and I could potentially uh, bulk our wealth together or put it together so we can go to markets, for example, purchasing a property with less of an interest rate, with less terms, because it suits our buying capabilities and potentially putting down a deposit so we don't have to mortgage a larger amount and trying to get these things. into place faster than if we had to do it on an individual basis. But I'm not going to reap the rewards of these types of things potentially in my end of life, 60s plus. Um, what's going to happen is the beneficiaries to this is my wife and my daughter, and God willing, um, if we have another daughter or a son. So that's the exciting part here, Michael, is that they're going to have a trust and an investment company and a portfolio of properties. You know, can you imagine when you reach about 30, knowing that your parents grinded their butts to get you something that protects your future on this planet? I don't think there is anything else that I could do that could say I love you more to my family than protecting them in that way. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm keen on doing. Yeah.
Well, if your daughter listens to this podcast sometime in the future, what do you hope she takes away from it? And what do you hope that she just takes away from all that you're doing? And how easy will it be for you to get her to understand what you're doing? That's a lot of
Because
questions.
no, I love it. Because I will have brought her up. I'm pretty sure that she will be imbued with the same type of traits that I've been discussing on this podcast. But I think it'll reaffirm when she listens to this, when, not if, when, that hard work will take you anywhere you want to go, that choosing your circle and being around faith-based people is imperative. It's not optional, it's imperative. And listening, not to respond, listening without interrupting, gives people around you the ability to feel heard. And that is one of the rarest gifts on this planet that most people do not give their friends and their family. I hope that she understands those things. And then naturally, the umbrella above all of those is that her family loves her and supports her and believes in her.
Mm, that's the key. And if she understands that, then she'll be the richest lady in the world.
100%. She already knows it. Trust me. This little fiend is so spoiled. Um, I have to step over the Christmas presents in our office. We have to hide them. She is wonderfully loved and spoiled by her grandparents and her parents. We're blessed.
That's good. You know, this podcast is called Unstoppable Mindset. Well, how would you define an unstoppable mindset?
I think an unstoppable mindset starts with recognizing that adversity and challenges are just part of it. It's not something that you can sit there and go, this is what happened to me. I now can't do X, Y, and Z. I mean, take your case, Michael. You've gone through unmatched, unbelievable adversity. You've gone through it, and you're still here, and you're kicking, and you're going bonkers with everything that you possibly can. That is an unstoppable mindset. So when you recognize that difficulties is literally just a part of the recipe, uh, in order to make a good meal, it's the recipe of
Yeah.
life. Then you start looking at it in a different way. Then you start pulling out the lessons that difficulty starts to present instead of arguing against them and using them as weapons to prevent or hinder your growth. So learning that difficulty is part of the process is I believe, one of the main traits, pillars of an unstoppable mindset.
Hmm. Do you think there really is such a thing as failure?
Could quote the coach of Conor McGregor, it's win or learn. Probably one
Yeah.
of the best ways to stay it. I have failed multiple times in, physical things, and I've gone through a ton of failure, but there hasn't been a single point in time that it hasn't helped me with the decision down the line.
Which
I've tripped
really,
so many times, and yeah,
which really begs, well, it doesn't beg, but which really proves what my opinion is that there's really no failure. It's a learning experience.
absolutely. It just adds to the value of something else that's coming up in your life, which kind of brings us, I presume you would agree, back to our faith-based.
Yeah.
You know, this is all not pre-planned, but he knows exactly what's going on in your life.
Hmm.
He's put those things in front of you to help you level up and get ready for what's to come. So everything that I've gone through and everything that my wife has gone through, we both completely agree down to anything that it was just preparing us regarding the life lessons that we need to give to our daughter. So
Yeah.
there is no failure. It's just lessons.
Yeah. And with that, I'm going to say if people want to reach out to you, how might they do that? You've offered a lot,
Thank you.
and I think you've taught us a lot. If people want to reach out, how do they do that?
I welcome it. I help people all the time. We've started multiple different charities with Lechem Matswari Safety Home, Bethany Safety Home, Moria Center for Bejaards. I continuously reach out to people that are job seeking on LinkedIn. I help them with Upwork profiles, TopTal, BBX UK, freelancer.com, Contra, Wellfound. No matter who you are or where you are, please connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message, let me know what you're going through. Let's go through it together. It's it's something that I look forward to making you laugh about in 3 months' time. So
So,
contact me on LinkedIn. Yeah.
what's your LinkedIn contact, and if you'll spell it, please.
Uh, Chris Grant Maritz. I believe that's ChrisGrantMaritz.
There you go. Well, I hope people will reach out. You have offered a lot of really great advice, and you've offered a lot of good stuff. And I hope that people will take it to heart and that they'll reach out to you.
And Michael, thank you so much. We can't undermine how amazing this is to imbue us all with this platform so that we can all get through the stuff together. So thank you for what
Well,
you do. It's
well,
it's not a small feat.
well, it's my pleasure. And for any of you out there, you're welcome to reach out to me. You can contact me at Michael, Michaelhi, at accessibe, accessibe.com. Love it if you give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening or watching or both this podcast. But more important than even a rating, please give us a great review. We really value your reviews and hope that you will review us and say good, positive things about our conversation with Chris today. I would also say that there are a lot of other podcast episodes out there. Hope you'll listen to more of them. And we hope that you'll continue to come back and listen. If you know anyone who ought to be a guest, Chris, including you, we're always looking for more people to come on. Please feel free to introduce us. We would value getting to know more people and learning more life lessons. But for now, I just want to thank you, Chris, for being here. This has absolutely been fun.
Always an absolute pleasure to catch up with you, Michael, and to the audience. Thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it.
If you're ready to go deeper into the ideas that shape how we see ourselves and others, I have a free gift for you. Head over to michaelhingson.com and download my free ebook, Blinded by Fear. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep choosing to live with an unstoppable mindset.